Hello everyone, and welcome to Pyanodons Mods. This is Otaku Showboat. Today, we will be talking about helium. Oh boy, helium into our glorious super alloy. As per usual, don't forget to comment, like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell to help make this series appear higher up in YouTube search results. And you can do all the social stuff through the links in the description below this video. You can support Pyanodon at patreon.com/Pyanodon, as well as myself at patreon.com/Otaku Showboat. Also, Pyanodon's mods are in a constant state of flux, so things will change going forward after the release of this video. Guaranteed. So, helium. Where are we in the state of our map when we want to think about producing helium? Not that far away from beating the game, actually, from completion. You are going to be quite far in your overall base progression by the time you want to start making super alloy. Super alloy is going to be one of those things that you are going to want and need going into Mark III items. So you've, by this point, probably already gone through purple science. So that's going to be our timing on helium processing, is in a post-purple science or post-production science world. Not at chemical science packs blue science, but at the production purple science. That's generally when I would say to think about making dedicated helium, is at that point, because that's when you're going to start needing pretty immense amounts of super alloy. The tricky part about the helium processing chain is that helium is needed for super alloy. Super alloy is needed for the later stages of making helium. So that's where we're going to start off today. Initially, to produce helium, before you've set up any amounts of super alloy, the, shall we say, intended method of getting a trickle of helium so that you can initially produce a small amount of super alloy, in which I will place down a building here to show us that the super alloy recipe is chromium, limestone, nexlet plate, sand castings, fuel rods, molybdenum trioxide, vanadium oxide, nickel plates, aramid, and a little bit of helium. It is 2-to-1 the helium to super alloy. Each cycle of this is 5 super alloy, so just bear that in mind. You get 5 super alloy for every 1 chromium, 1 limestone, 1 nexlet, 1 sand casting, or actually no, 20 chromium, 3 limestone, 5 nexlet, 2 sand castings, 2 fuel rods, 5 molybdenum trioxide. That's a 1-to-1 ratio there. Just FYI. Molybdenum trioxide, just as a side note, can only be obtained through processing molybdenum ore. So you can only get our beautiful molybdenum trioxide via the actual molybdenum processing chain. This is what you are going to want to stop at. It is the step just before making plates. So it's the entire chain until the very last step before you actually make the plates for your molybdenum trioxide. Vanadium we have covered. This is a not insignificant amount of nickel. I want to throw that out there. This is a not insignificant amount of nickel. Fuel rods are not going to cost you uranium. Do not use the uranium recipe for the fuel rod Mark 1s, and everything else is pretty simple, except for, of course, we need some non-zero amounts of helium. So the intended way, initially, is to turn air, pressured air, with activated carbon into purified air, into cold air, with liquid nitrogen into cold clean air through biofilm, into liquid clean air by adding gasoline and water, and then converting that into helium and dry gas stream. You will get a very, very small amount of helium through this method. This is the least efficient method of producing both dry gas stream as well as helium. The absolute least efficient method of doing it in terms of raw output for amount of buildings that you produce or need to place down. There is, of course, the alternative to this initially of doing particle accelerated helium. This is how I got my initial helium for the initial small amounts of superalloy that you need to complete the rest of the processing chain to actually process the dry gas stream, because from dry gas stream, that is like your starting point for the second half of the chain that actually produces way more helium than this initial setup that you're going to have to produce a bit of superalloy to make the buildings to complete the chain, and then you'll have enough, more than enough helium for most of your purposes. Of course, I would not do fusion. Full stop. But you'll need helium if you do plan on doing fusion power. So that's the helium, converting hydrogen into helium with proton donors, which, bear in mind, that's boron with crystallographic substrate. So relatively expensive, but one building, lots of power to use to make your initial supply of superalloy, because you should have, at this point in the game, literally everything else besides the helium for it. So whichever one of these that you choose initially to get the initial set of helium is up to you. Note that this is required. This one, this is the limiting factor here, because this step gives you actual helium. There are other methods of getting dry gas stream that are much, much better, but the liquid clean air method is the only one that actually gives you a little bit of helium on the output. So bear that in mind as well, that this gives you a little bit of helium with the dry gas stream, and that is the intended method initially, to not particle accelerate to get your first amounts of superalloy. From here, we need to discuss the actual other methods of getting dry gas stream. So what are the other methods of getting dry gas stream? There are a few, technically, but for all intents and purposes, it's through liquid petroleum gas, as well as calcinets, or regolite rocks. So, regolite mining. Note that this is a non-renewable method of getting yourself helium. This is non-renewable helium, so keep that in mind. Liquid petroleum, very renewable. It is a fully renewable process. You are fully able to set up infinite supplies of petroleum through biotic means and make as much helium as you want forever. And you never have to worry about running out of a mine. Regolites have a higher output of dry gas stream than the liquid petroleum gas method, but are not renewable, so do bear that in mind. Also bear in mind, yes, you can totally scale up the resource density so that they are effectively infinite on the nodes anyway, so just to keep all of these things in mind. You can, if you want, make the resource density high enough such that whatever mining that you do is effectively infinite mining anyway. And go from there. Now, regolite rock first gets crushed, gives you stone. Bear this in mind. Then gets powdered, gives you gravel. Bear that in mind. Then gets dusted, gives you sand. Bear that in mind. And then from there, you convert your dust into calcinets and ash and dry gas stream. There is also a recipe to convert your gravel into dry gas stream, as well as stone into dry gas stream. And you can also take your sand and get more gravel out of it. Isn't that convenient? Sand into gravel? Yeah, sand into gravel. Yeah, sand. Sand is awesome. Sand is magnificent because you can do so many things with it. So very many things. I love this recipe, by the way, for the sand. In case you hadn't noticed by now, I really like that recipe to do iron oxide, gravel, and crushed quartz. There are other recipes I can use to do things with the sand here, but yeah, and none of this is to ratio, by the way. So 3 recipes. There is a 4th recipe for calcinets that I will mention, and that is bones into calcinets, but it does not give you dry gas stream, and the only thing that you can do with calcinets is solid separate into iron ore, copper ore, limestone, and sulfur. 4 things that have absolutely nothing to do with making helium. So the actual calcinets are a waste product in this process. The calcinets are a waste product, as well as ash. You are going for dry gas stream, and overall, by processing your regolite rocks, it will, by virtue of the byproducts, be producing a lot more dry gas stream than converting petroleum into liquid petroleum. Speaking of which, the second best option after doing this type of setup, note that also you could spend iron to get stone or gravel and convert it into dry gas stream. So it is possible to directly convert iron into helium. Just as a point of reference, you can directly convert iron into helium through that method. It is not particularly efficient use of your materials, but it is an option. Now, the rest of the chain. Let me first briefly mention that liquefied petroleum gas is petroleum, water, and gasoline. And then from there, it goes from compressors into fluid separators. Add activated carbon, and you've got glorious aromatics, as well as gas stream. And then that gas stream has to be converted into dry gas stream that is in a filter, so filtration media, to get dry gas stream. This process is pretty heavy on the zinc due to the activated carbon and filtration media requirements. You've also got gasoline being used here, but overall, I like this because it is completely renewable, fully renewable. And there are plenty of ways of getting infinite amounts of petroleum gas available to you. So I happen to just prefer this little method here. Now, so you've got dry gas stream. So you've made a little bit of your super alloy initially. Why do we need to make a little bit of super alloy initially? Well, it's because of this right here, this little setup right here off to the side. Kamat's enclosures and Gen Labs require the assembling machine 3 to make. And guess what? Assembling machine 3 requires super alloy. And as you can see, it's needed for the Kamals as well as the Gen Lab. Right there. So you need the assembling machine 3 for that, which means you need super alloy to make the buildings that will be required going forward. Alright, why do we need these buildings? Well, because from dry gas stream, let's just go through it. We need, in order to process our dry gas stream into high purified gas and CO2, we need ethanolamine. We need ethanolamine for that. Ethanolamine requires methyl acrylate as well as alien bacteria Mark I. The methyl acrylate is just iron, sulfuric acid, and methanol. This is easy. The alien bacteria, though, this is going to require thalgy substrate. Okay, that's coke plus thalgy. Some optical sets. At least I think it's coke plus thalgy. Yeah. Optical sets that we made those for green science as well as for turrets, laser turrets. Nextlit, as per usual. Phytoplankton and serine. Phytoplankton and serine. So remember, this building itself needs like 3-ish assembling machine 3s to make, so super alloy is needed for this. Phytoplankton farms, you can make these. These don't need super alloy. Phytoplankton is grade 1 tin, so bear that in mind as well. You need grade 1 tin as well to feed this beast. Grade 1 tin to go into your alien bacteria. And serine. Serine is from Kamats enclosures, which, again, require the assembling machine 3s. These guys need Kamats rations, and the actual rations are lard, blood meal, skin, and tin plate. This is your first / only required use of blood meal at this point in time. Blood meal I have used for nylon. I have done the nylon recipe that does blood meal. It is only actually necessary for the Kamats rations. But I figured since it's going to be used anyway for the rations, may as well do the nylon recipe for it, use it there, but there are 2 recipes for nylon. Just to throw that out there, there is a nichrome recipe for nylon. I wanted to avoid the nichrome use, so I went with the blood meal recipe initially, so definitely bear that in mind. Kamats the only absolutely necessary use of blood meal is for this, and this is only actually used. This serine is only actually used for the alien bacteria 1, which it's used for ethanolamine in this high purified gas processing in the helium chain. It is also used for resilin. Resilin is very important because resilin gives you a better biofilm recipe, a much better biofilm recipe. It gives you hyperelastic material as well as nanoelectrical mechanical systems. Nanoelectrical mechanical systems. This is a utility science item. This is needed directly in utility science, and you can see all of the wonderful things that we actually have most of right now. We already have this. Technically, we can get this, as well as this. Silicon wafers, as well as glass and etching solutions. So, carbon nanotubes, nanowires, and, well, resilin. Those are like the only 3 things, and then you've got nano-electrical mechanical systems. Isn't that beautiful? Isn't that wonderful? Like, when you really think about it, it's like, oh, sure, there's this big list of things, 3 of which are new for utility science, if you're at purple, just for reference. The hyperelastic material, well, as soon as you get the biopolymer and the zinc oxide nanoparticles, well, then there you go. You've got your hyperelastic. It's the biopolymer that will be your trouble because that's going to be silver foam. I will have probably a video for producing biopolymer. It is a very key item that unlocks a number of Mark III items. I'm just still in the process of figuring things out going forward, just for reference. Still in the process of figuring things out on that front. So, that is your ethanolamine to produce your high purified gas. Where do we go from here? We go next door to a destructive distillation column that takes your high purified gas, makes rich gas, a trace amount of methanol that we really don't have anything good to do with, and helium-rich gas. So rich gas and helium-rich gas. We will get back to that helium-rich gas shortly. We will be converting our rich gas into helium-rich gas in these next steps. It will require a step in between, though. We will take our rich gas with gasoline and water and make it into liquid-rich gas with steam. From here, we will take our liquid-rich gas and produce helium-rich gas. We then take the helium-rich gas from back here, as well as from in here. And from there, we go and we just make in a glorious gas processing unit line from purier. So we do helium-rich gas into purier helium gas by adding gasoline and water again. So liquid-rich into helium-rich into purier helium into helium. Hydrogen plus purier is helium. And that is helium. This part of the chain is identical no matter how you are getting your dry gas stream. So all of this and all of this is the same. It's only this little piece here that is unique to the method of getting the dry gas stream. This is the way of getting it through petroleum initially, the liquid petroleum method. And this is like the building counts when doing 2 buildings with level 1 productivity modules. It processes that much into that much into a fair bit of helium in the end. But apparently this is the better overall output process through the mining of the regolites and getting dry gas stream through these processes here by using all of your glorious byproducts to also get even more of the dry gas stream. And then it will just plug in right into here. As long as you've got enough ethanolamine, you can continue going on down the line. And as long as you've got enough, hydrogen and enough gasoline, you should be good, actually. Enough hydrogen, enough gasoline, and enough water, basically. That's all you really need there. But the ethanolamine will be a limiting factor for you, a bottleneck, just by how much G110 you can feed into the phytoplankton, as well as how much of the skin and the blood meal and the lard and the actual tin plates you can feed in to make the rations. Just point note here, by this point in the game, you absolutely have to have set up your processing of Zipier to get your blood meal. Currently, the only way to get blood is Zipier processing. It also gives you plenty of skin, so bear that in mind as well. That's how you're getting your skin. With Pi Alien Life, there will be many, 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 many new methods to get skin and blood meal and lard and all of that good stuff, as well as Mark 2 through 4 versions of all of the alien life type buildings. So do bear all of this in mind. This will be changing with Pi Alien Life, which is supposedly releasing by the end of the year, quote unquote. By the end of the year, end of which year has not been stated, but by the end of quote unquote the year, by the end of the year, we don't know what the year actually is. I think it would be foolish to assume that the year is the year 2019. Basically, I'm saying I have no hopes that Alien Life will be in a playably released state in 2019, or at the very least, it won't be balanced and be fully playable in 2019. It will probably be testing in 2019, so we at least have that to look forward to. AKA, I have a lot of, testing and balance, suggestions that will probably need to happen. And a lot of breaking of the thing to do by the end of the year, most likely. So we shall see how things will progress on that front. However, I think we have very much reached the end of our video today. I have discussed super alloy as well as the way of getting the helium for the super alloy. Our big focus today was on helium. It is not that bad. It is a fairly linear process. In fact, it is a completely linear process. The difficulty with helium is that you need some super alloy to make buildings that make you the ethanolamine to process dry gas stream. So you will need, for the Gen Lab, as well as the Kamats enclosures, some amounts of super alloy for the assembling machine 3s for this. And this, of course, also means that you definitely need your special small parts already set up. You have set up special small parts by now, right? You need them for the assembling machine 3s as well. As for getting the initial amounts of super alloy, as I had said at the beginning, the intended route is to convert air into dry gas stream, and that gives you a little tiny 40% of 0.5, 40% of this value here as an output of helium, to give you a very, very slow trickle to feed some super alloy for you. The alternative, of course, is to just particle accelerate for it initially. Switch off of this the moment you get access to either the calcinant dry gas stream via regolites or through the liquid petroleum, which, bear in mind, is going to cost you activated carbon as well as filtration media. With that, folks, I would like to thank you all for watching. This has been Otaku Showboat. If you have enjoyed today's video, please be sure to comment, like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell to help make this series appear higher up in search results. You can do all of the social stuff through the links in the description below this video. And don't forget that you can also support Pyanodon at patreon.com/Pyanodon and myself at patreon.com/Otaku Showboat. What is the next tutorial going to be? I haven't exactly decided prior to this very point in time. My thought was that it would probably have to be uranium. Oddly enough, the uranium processing chain should actually come next in terms of logical progression in the mods. And the reason for that is you need a specific product of uranium processing, the 70% uranium powder, for making heavy fermion material. So our next processing chain is going to need to be uranium ore processing. So that will be what we do next Sunday, folks. We will be going over the uranium processing chain. I am, of course, officially back to streaming today. Streaming Pyanodons mods. Today was the first stream back as of the release of this video. This video is being released on a Sunday, uh, December 1st, I think. Yeah, I can't believe it. It's already December. Uh, so yeah, it's coming. It's a coming along, and part of what I'm doing in the stream right now is the uranium processing. So I will definitely have it somewhat fresh in mind, having done it from the stream, um, when making that video. It is insane. I'm gonna throw out there that uranium processing, you need to look at the flowchart for. You're gonna need a flowchart for this, because this will be the most complex of what we've done thus far. Uranium is the most complex of the ore processing chains, hands down the most complex ore processing chain, and it is required to get heavy fermium material, and that's going to be required going into all of the future stuff from here. So we'll talk about all of that in the next video. I hope to see you all then.